Doma Sports Talk worldwide with some news from the world of boxing. So y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed, baby. Now, in the world of boxing right now, the big story, whether people believe it or not, and we'll talk about it later, is Terrence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. I'm gonna do a video a little bit later about that it's being hyped, even though people were talking about they didn't want to see it. Now all of a sudden it's popping off. We'll get to that. But I was thinking about something today that really hit me, and it was like, if Turki Alalshikh would have showed up, all these good fights that he's made already, the ones that's coming up, he's planning, it's just fights all over the place where we've been wanting to see. Now, a lot of people don't like that because they like to arguing about, about stuff, and they don't want their fighter to get in these fights. And a lot of fighters are going to retire and get up out of here because there's going to be no more easy fights when Turki Alalshikh is around. And I was just wishing that he would have started 3 to 5 years earlier. Turki Alalshikh has been on the scene maybe 2.5 years. But if he was there 5 years ago, 7 years ago, then fighters like Demetrius Andrade would have had a different type of career. His trajectory would have been totally different. He'd be a guaranteed Hall of Famer and things like that. Or he would at least been in fights so we can prove it or not. And he was able to be avoided, right? Like Paulie Malignaggi was saying. Paulie Malignaggi was saying Demetrius Andrade is one of the biggest tragedies in boxing, right? And Paulie Malignaggi is someone who people would call racist and stuff like that because of certain comments that he's made about Eastern European fighters. And I was like, but a racist wouldn't be capable of saying that Demetrius Andrade was one of the biggest tragedies in boxers. A racist wouldn't be capable of saying that Canelo Alvarez is avoiding a Demetrius Andrade or a David Benavidez or things like that. They won't say it. They would think it, but they are not saying it loud. They just couldn't, physically can't. So that's why I don't consider Paulie Malignaggi a racist. I just consider him somebody who has a strong opinion, and he will fight for his opinion, and he's not afraid to say it. And when his opinion is not yours, doesn't mean he's racist. Because when he was talking about the Eastern Europeans, I was telling you, that opinion wasn't outlandish when you're looking at the heavyweight landscape that the Klitschko's were able to rule 10 years themselves. And okay, Povetkin was dope, but he was up there. There was a couple other Eastern Europeans in the heavyweights. In the cruiserweights, we don't have to discuss it. There probably wasn't, all of them were Eastern Europeans. If it was Usyk at the time, Mariusz Gossev, Mariusz Briedis, Wojciech, here the Polish guy, and there's a whole bunch of heaps that I'm forgetting. And I would say the only one that wasn't from Eastern European at the time that was in the top 7 or 8 was Dordicus. Everybody else was. So that wasn't a statement. And then light heavyweights, we knew we had, we got Bivol and Beterbiev and Wojciech. Those were the top 3. And then you could sprinkle down in other divisions. You had Gennady Golovkin and Derevyanchenko and Postol and Lomachenko and stuff. So that wasn't an outlandish statement, right? But anyway, be that as it may, if Turki Alalshikh was around earlier, right, then let's make sure this is clear. Demetrius Andrade wouldn't have been able to be avoided. And I'm going to say Demetrius Andrade was avoided by Canelo Alvarez worse than Benavidez. The boxing world is it's easier to say for a lot of people, everyone, well, he's avoiding Benavidez, because people know, well, no matter what you are, that one you can get away with, right? You're avoiding Benavidez. It irks me because that's like, well, he avoided Demetrius Andrade worse than Benavidez. Benavidez was just as mandatory, right? Just as mandatory. He could have fought Benavidez also for lucrative money. That's it. Demetrius Andrade was the champion at 154, and Canelo was the mandatory for Demetrius Andrade, and Demetrius Andrade was calling him out. So imagine you're a mandatory and you say, hey, I don't want that champion, he's too hard. That's what happened to Demetrius Andrade. Then they move up to the next division, and Canelo does all this other stuff, fights everybody else, and then won't fight Demetrius Andrade for undisputed and lucrative. You understand? That's worse to me. And not only that, he was able to call Demetrius Andrade in daylight a horrible fighter. He wouldn't fight him, right? Then they were all signed Demetrius Andrade went to go sign for DAZN at the time. Canelo had a 10-fight, $385 million deal. He was able to fight 2 or 3 fights that were not hard, and then DAZN said, listen, we're sick of losing money, now you got to fight the hard guy. Demetrius Andrade is what they were talking about. Canelo said, the hell with that, I'm getting out of that deal. Think about it, leaves the deal for DAZN. Now, DAZN didn't put him on blast. Turki Alalshikh would have. That's the difference. Turki Alalshikh would have said, dude, I didn't pay you $385 for 10 fights, just put some money in your pocket for fighting 2 easy guys. Now I tell you that you got to fight Demetrius Andrade, who we signed here, so you can do so, and you're going to get out the deal? No, I'm telling the public that, right? That's what would have happened. Demetrius Andrade's stock would have rose. Now, DAZN just didn't say nothing. Demetrius Andrade was at DAZN with Canelo Alvarez on purpose, asking him to fight, with Gennady Golovkin on purpose, asking him to fight. He even offered Gennady Golovkin to fight him right-handed because Golovkin was trying to fight somebody smaller than him, from a division lower than him. I forget the guy's name. And what happened? A guy that did good against Demetrius Andrade, actually. And Canelo, Gennady Golovkin was trying to fight this 154-pounder. And Demetrius Andrade said, listen, if you want me to, I'll fight you right-handed, okay? And he didn't even want to do that, Gennady Golovkin. And Demetrius Andrade mandatory and Jaime Munguia said no, just like Canelo did. I'm your mandatory, but you're too hard. I'm not doing that. That's what Demetrius Andrade went through. But back to Canelo, he just said, I'm not doing that. Forget the deal. Forget everything. I am not fighting Demetrius Andrade. And I think DAZN should have put him on blast. Turki Alalshikh would have. And so my point is just here, simple. Demetrius Andrade was avoided from Canelo worse than David Benavidez, right? And so, like I'm saying right now, yeah, he's going to fight Terence Crawford, but we'll talk about that later. But he didn't want to fight Demetrius Andrade worse, and David Benavidez, and David Morrell, for that matter. But my point is, if Turki Alalshikh would have been around earlier, Demetrius Andrade's career would have been different, because he would have, just like he's doing with Terence Crawford right now, doing stuff that irks racist people, like walking around saying Terence Crawford is a legend. Racists don't like to hear that, right? Don't be saying that out loud. Turki does it on purpose. Terence Crawford's a damn legend, damn it. Do something about it instead of sitting back, doing all this other stuff and everything except fighting the guy, right? So that's why he does it. He's a legend, and he would have done something similar with Demetrius Andrade. Unfortunately for Andrade had to go up later, got a little older, going up trying to mess with David Benavidez, and that didn't work out. But he would have at least had a chance to fight Canelo and Gennady Golovkin, and if they wouldn't have done it, and Jaime Munguia, they would have been put on blast. That's what Turki Alalshikh, and he would have been walking around here calling Demetrius Andrade the legend, like DAZN should have done. Following me? Doma Sports Talk, worldwide. And I'm up out of here, y'all.